And now to the Middle East. Officials in Gaza say nearly a dozen people were killed after Israeli troops opened fire at a vehicle in Gaza City. Officials say among the dead, 7 children and 3 women. Israel says the vehicle had crossed the so-called yellow line surrounding Israeli-occupied areas. It says soldiers fired warning shots, but the vehicle didn't stop and they opened fire, claiming they were allowed to do so by the ceasefire agreement. Hamas accuses Israel of violating the deal. Meanwhile, Hamas is calling for the next steps in the ceasefire to start, which would allow the transfer of more aid and rebuilding to begin as well. Israel says it has received the body of another hostage that was held by Hamas. It happened earlier today. Israeli officials say the body was identified as that of a 75-year-old man whose death was officially announced by the Israeli military in December of 2023. So far, under the new ceasefire deal in Gaza, the remains of 10 deceased hostages have been returned by Hamas. Hamas says it is trying to locate the remaining bodies, but they may be buried in the rubble or in Israeli-controlled areas. With me now is Tess Ingram. She is a UNICEF spokesperson, and she joins me from the Al-Mawasi area in the south of the Gaza Strip. Tess, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What is the situation on the ground now when it comes to aid?
We're seeing an increase in the volume of aid trucks coming into the Gaza Strip, which is really good news because this allows us to reach people with items they've been desperately waiting for many, many months, if not years now, and also to scale up our services on the ground, like nutrition screening services, learning centres for children, mental health and psychosocial support, and the trucking of drinking water. So it is good news that aid is increasing under the ceasefire because the situation really does remain so desperate, and it's a race against the clock now to make sure that we meet children's needs and prevent them from dying the preventable deaths that we've been seeing here because of the humanitarian crisis, like children dying from starvation.
Is enough food getting in now to alleviate that, or does the aid delivery have to increase?
It's still very early days here. You know, a couple of days of higher volumes is not going to undo 2 years of suffering. So we need to see this happen consistently. And we continue to call for the Israeli authorities to open more crossings into the Gaza Strip so that we can really see an avalanche of aid come in. Because as you say, you know, the food situation here has been incredibly bleak. We have a famine confirmed in Gaza City. Children are still being diagnosed in their thousands with malnutrition. So the volume of aid, including food, has to continue to flow into Gaza Strip at scale.
Are you able to move a little more freely through Gaza and get food to the places that need it?
We are able to move more freely through parts of the Gaza Strip at the moment. There are areas that we didn't previously have free access to that we are now able to return to. For example, this week I was in parts of Gaza City that in recent months were under intense bombardment, neighbourhoods in the east and the north of the city that are unfortunately completely destroyed. The destruction is immense, and families are now returning there for the first time to assess if their homes are still standing, what sort of life there remains in their neighbourhoods, and how they're going to move forward. And they were really telling us, we need everything. We need shelter. We need to know that drinking water will come here. We need to know that we're going to be able to feed our children and put warm clothes on them as the nights ahead get cold.
And are they optimistic that the ceasefire will hold?
I think people are optimistic because they feel like they have no choice but to be. This ceasefire is a lifeline for families here, and it really must hold for the sake of children. You know, we were seeing children killed and injured every single day by bombardments. They can now live free of that fear. But of course, the humanitarian crisis on the ground persists. So the ceasefire is critical in that it will enable us to continue to scale up the life-saving assistance that children need and ultimately get back to the point, hopefully, of helping families rebuild their communities.
Okay, Tess, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Tess Ingram is a spokesperson for UNICEF.